How many people are on? Okay. Well, I think we're ready to start. And what usually happens is that people do continue to join as the meeting goes on. So hello, everybody. Today is the third Thursday of the month. So that means it's time for Detroit Solar Stories as part of the GLREA and my son Solar Stories for the state of Michigan. So today we're going to be looking at the Detroit MoGo Solar Story. We have Rory Lincoln as our guest, and we'll make sure you know, everybody knows that there are 4 weeks in each month, and I think the fifth month it's a Q&A sort of thing. First is Ann Arbor with the solar stories that they're doing in the city of Ann Arbor. Second is Clean Energy Seminars with Mark Levy. Third is Detroit Solar Stories. And then the fourth is more of the general My Solar Stories and Energy Q&As, as well as the fifth. We are very proud to let everybody know that this is the 30th year anniversary for Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association. I'm proud to be a board member, and we're always happy to be the go-to team for anybody who's looking at solar solutions or solar questions. There are ways that you can be a part of GLREA, and I will leave this up here for one moment. So if there's any websites that you want to jot down or come back to on the recording. So tonight we're going to be featuring a very different kind of solar story that is pretty exciting. In Detroit, I'm sure everyone's been aware of a lot of the changes coming to Detroit from the Motor City being strictly a motorized city, that we're now joining the world of bicycling, and there's bike lanes everywhere, hundreds of miles of bike crisscrossing through the whole city. All months of the year, you're seeing the bicyclists out there. And a great project that has been helping to move bicycling forward in Detroit is the MoGo project. So Rory Lincoln is here to share some of the information about the program. And the reason why we're using it as a solar story is that these MoGos, bicycles, are off grid. So why shouldn't the docking stations be off grid too? So we're very excited to see this new application of solar and how well it's working here in Detroit. So Rory, if you're able to share the screen now, your screen, I will take my slides away and you can join.
Thanks, Diane. Did you want me to share my screen, or did you want to go with the video next, or?
Oh, you're showing yours next, and then Kat will be coming in with the video.
Oh, okay. All right, well, I guess let me share this stuff. I just wanted to share a couple, well, actually, maybe I'll just start before I share the images. Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Rory Lincoln. I'm the Director of Programming and Operations for MoGo, which is the public bike sharing system in Detroit, and now Metro Detroit as well. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, which was founded in 2015, and then we launched our service in 2017. And we're a fairly small organization. It's myself and 2 other full-time employees and then 1 part-time individual. And MoGo was founded by a woman named Lisa Miskowski, who has just recently left to take on the role of the president of the Q line. So she's staying local and continuing in Detroit transportation, which is fantastic. She'll be a wonderful person to help get the Q line back on the tracks, pun intended. But yeah, so MoGo has 75 stations and 650 bikes now in 6 Metro Detroit cities: Detroit, Ferndale, Oak Park, Berkeley, Huntington Woods, and Royal Oak. And we just expanded to some of those Southern Oakland County cities in Northwest Detroit last year. Actually, during the pandemic, that was an expansion effort that was about 2 years in the making, and obviously no one forecasted a pandemic to happen. But we felt it was an appropriate thing to do, considering that people were looking for socially distant transportation alternatives, and MoGo seems to fit that bill. But public bike sharing is, an opportunity for people to pick up and drop off bikes at any one of these 75 stations. It's sort of a first mile, last mile transit alternative, something to get you to your car if you're doing sort of a park and ride style, or from your car to work or to home or whatever it might be. Or maybe it's replacing an entire trip, for people who happen to live within our service area and work in our service area and have grocery shopping in our service area. Now that might be an option for those folks, but bike share is really intended to be sort of a connector piece, not necessarily the entire solution. So our infrastructure is we do not manufacture that. It's purchased from an entity called PBSC Urban Solutions, which is based out of Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And they manufacture kiosks, bikes, parts for bike sharing systems all over the country and the world. So we are just one of a number of cities that are benefiting from their ingenuity. And one of those, great things that they've created is solar powered kiosks and bike share stations that, can run off the sun, and there's no hardwired, no reason to tap into the city's grid. Our bike share stations and bikes and the system generally takes up a fairly low power supply. So it really wasn't necessary for us to have something like that. And actually, it's cheaper for us to purchase solar powered stations than it is for us to, in the long run, to buy a station that would be hardwired into the ground, and then obviously pay for that ongoing energy bill. So the solar powered stations have been fantastic for us. They've withstood the test of time, at least up through these last 4 years. And I guess I can just screen share here just to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about, and then we can go into this video shortly after. But this is one of our stations, which is, can everybody see my screen? Just maybe a thumbs up. Yeah, cool, thanks. This is one of our stations in downtown Detroit, actually in Capitol Park. And you can see that there's a number of these docking points, a map frame down at the far end, and sort of in the middle of the picture here is that larger kiosk, which has a touch screen and the credit card reader. And so at the top of that kiosk, you can kind of see a solar mast that's heading up through the top of the picture, and that's connected to a solar panel, which I'll get a better picture of in the next image. But this is just, just wanted to give everybody like a baseline of what exactly this is. That solar power, or that solar panel is powering 2 car batteries, which are inside the kiosk, which then powers the kiosk itself, and electricity that runs through each docking point, which allows us to check bikes in and out. And then through cloud-based software, people who are using keys or ride codes that are produced via an app, they can unlock a bike or lock it when they're done riding. This is just a little bit more of a zoomed out view here. And you can see the top of that solar mast and the 2 solar panels at the top. Again, these things have been really great for everything that we've been trying to do to run our service in the city of Detroit and in Southern Oakland County. There really hasn't been too much of a negative. I think the only negative that we've ever really run into is that oftentimes these solar masts stretch when we're a little short on sidewalk right of way. They get up a little bit closer to the curb, and sometimes we get trucks driving by and they might clip them. And really that's like the only downside that we've seen. There's no downside as part of like the actual connections within inside the station or how much power we're receiving. This is Michigan, so it does get a little cloudy in the winter and the fall, making it a little bit harder to power our stations. But I'd say on like a bad day, kind of in the winter, we might go a couple days to a week where if there's no sun, maybe even longer than that. If there's absolutely no sun, we might just have a station showing a low connection, and we might just go charge that battery on our own. But in the summer, we don't have to touch it at all. I mean, from probably March until late October, early November, we really aren't having to maintain that station for power in any way, shape, or form. I'd say the only other downfall, as society is sort of changing a little bit and people are looking for more e-powered mobility solutions. We have obviously, well, obviously, maybe not obviously, we as part of our 650 bike fleet, we have 530 or so pedal bikes, and then the rest are electric bicycles. And so, because our stations are not hardwired into the ground, the solar mass and solar panels just can't generate enough electricity that could power the bicycles and get them back up to a full charge while they're sitting in a docking point. So it's just been easier for us to set in our system that once bikes fall below a certain percentage, they get checked into a docking station. They are automatically locked down, so no one can check them out again. We come and pick them up, bring them back to our warehouse, and then charge them via hardwired outlet. So that is probably the only other negative. I think it would be great if there was some way that we could get enough energy coming in through the solar panels to be able to charge our boost bikes. That would save us a lot of money again. But that's probably where we're at for right now. And then just one more image here. You saw in the last one, there is, maybe you can't really see that so well there. On this image, you can see there's a touch screen just above the credit card reader. That's just another thing that's being powered by the solar panel. It doesn't take a lot of energy to power that. But of our 75 stations, about 50, maybe just under 50 of them, nope, maybe just over 50 of them have touchscreen kiosks, and then the rest are like this one. And while you probably can't tell the difference from this image, but if you zoom in a little bit more, you can see, well, maybe not so much. There's actually no touchscreen on this one. So this is just a little bit of a cost savings for us. In that the station itself doesn't require the guts that is needed to create a color LCD touchscreen. And so people would just check out a bike with the app, but it powers just the same through the solar panel. It just doesn't need to draw as much power to sustain the station. So I think I'll kind of pause there. I have a few other things I can talk about after the video, but yeah, maybe we can kind of go to that, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Okay. I put in the chat that if there are any questions, please type them in. So while we're watching the video, we can start rounding up some questions, and then Rory will be available to answer as many of those questions as he can. I know I'm thinking, like, can you charge your cell phone here? Or, what other kind of resiliency projects are there? Or even some suggestions for how we can get those e-bikes blasted up as well along the way. But in the meantime, Catherine Diggs this is one of the topics that she has her video on. Kat, are you with us?
Yep.
And can you, but the nice thing is that the video was interviewing Lisa, the original director. I know Lisa from way back. She was in early politics with Steve Tabachman, one of the staffers. And she also was really passionate about the green economy, worked with Wayne State to really launch this whole idea of the e-bikes in Detroit. And finally was able to take the concept with the city of Detroit at large, rather than it just being Wayne State's campus, which was a little concerning for everybody that just wasn't enough. And to see it grow to being not just the city of Detroit, but also Oakland County is phenomenal. And to me, the biggest thrill is when I see those solar panels out there as a way to demonstrate to people right in your face, see, it works.
Yeah. Yeah. Lisa's been great, and she really set us up for success. It's we're on a good course because she put us there. So I'm sure you all get that from the video as well.
Okay, so Kat, ready to introduce the video and give it a spin.
Yeah, so I imagine, Dan, that I'm going to feature the whole thing. The whole, it's an 8-minute video. Okay. So yeah, just like a tiny bit of background for anyone who hasn't heard about the project. Diane Checklich and Diane Van Buren have been partners of mine in this project, and they were looking to do case studies of solar success stories in the city of Detroit. And I decided as a manager of programs at Detroit is Working for Environmental Justice to jump in on that project and to pursue a documentary series with my project partner, Alex De Vega. Originally, he's a photojournalist and I'm a writer. So this was really kind of our first documentary project together ever. So it is a bit experimental. We've really learned as we've gone. We've worked on a very small budget and we tried to do the best we could with what we had. And so this is the interview that we did with Lisa in December. So Rory, there might be some data that might have shifted since December. I don't know, but I guess you'll see. So this is it. And we have about 3 more to come, and a total, by that point, we'll have a total of 16 videos that are featured in this playlist here. So let me know if ever there's any sound issues.
Okay, nice view of the solar panels though.
Rewind it a little. Ready.
I'm the founder and executive director of MoGo. We are Metro Detroit's nonprofit bike share system that often surprises people because they think that we're a company, but we're a nonprofit organization founded by folks here in Detroit. And so we have 75 bike share stations like you see right here around greater downtown Detroit, plus the Livernois McNichols corridors in Northwest Detroit, and then 5 suburban communities, Ferndale, Royal Oak, Oak Park, Berkeley, and Huntington Woods. And we're all about getting people to think about how they move around their communities differently. So we live in the Motor City, which has often been, known for its strong relationship with the car. And while cars certainly aren't bad, we're just trying to get people to think about how they can maybe replace some of those shorter distance car trips with a bike trip. It's healthier for you as an individual, healthier for communities, reduces traffic and congestion. And so that's what we've been doing for the last 3.5 years.
Tell us a little bit about how MoGo discovered solar, and how you guys went about deciding to get it installed for your stations, and how it aligns with your mission as a nonprofit transportation group.
Yeah, so we did a lot of study on the different companies that offer bike share products, and we went with the station-based model because we really like the consistency and reliability that offers. So people here who live in the North End at Brush and Bethune or nearby, you can walk out to a station and the chance that a bike is going to be here is greater than 99%. Our team does an awesome job making sure bikes are available. So we went with the station-based model, and we also wanted to have some flexibility. So let's say there are going to be renovations made on this park, or there's a construction project that happens on the street. Solar power and battery power allows us the opportunity to be able to move the station and adjust as needed. Whereas if we were to hardwire the stations into, a power grid, then we would have to, it costs that much more to install it, that much more to, take it out if we need to shift it, or if we decide, hey, guess what? There's, a better place, on the other side of the street on the opposite corner, then we have the flexibility to be able to move that. So I think just from a operational standpoint, that makes a lot of sense. But also it's just, we don't need to be taking any more power. This is a people-powered, really literally a human-powered transportation, system, right? I mean, you get on a bike, you pedal the bike and go. And so I feel like we wanted our stations to support that as well. And so they're all solar powered and battery powered. So it's, soaking up the sun right now. It has a battery inside the kiosk. During the winter, when we get less sun, we swap out the batteries a little bit more frequently. But other than that, we haven't had any issues with our system. So none of them are hardwired, and we just think it was the right move for us in wanting to have, as small a footprint environmentally as possible, and have the biggest impact in terms of reducing CO2 and getting people healthier and active. And when you look at the stations themselves, the fact that they are solar and battery powered was really a huge plus for us, because even though it wasn't the thing that drove our total decision, it was a factor because now we don't have to worry about monthly, utility costs to power each one of the stations. As we expand, that cost would just, continue to increase. So, being able to rely on just the solar battery powered stations themselves and not to have those additional costs definitely helps us as a nonprofit organization, because those costs are highly unpredictable. And so that's one element we can take out of the equation and instead use the savings that we have there to make sure that we're providing a great service, to make sure that we're doing programming, to make sure we're offering, equitable, accessible, affordable options for people. And so I really feel like those are savings that are producing results for the community.
From the perspective of MoGo Bikes, how do you guys feel like solar would benefit the Detroit community, and how might we explain to the community that solar is more accessible than we might think?
Yeah, I think this is a great example of it's relatively small, right? We've just got a couple of panels here on our station, but it's able to power an entire station, and that's part of a network of stations that are entirely powered by solar. And so I think that, you often think about these as having to be large scale projects, when there could be smaller scale projects that could just be having, an impact on one station or solar on one home or, one piece of property that could have a big impact. And we certainly have plenty of land here in Detroit. I think that could be purposed for, helping to meet more sustainable energy needs here in the city. So we're just one tiny part of that with our stations, but hope, that it's an example for others to think of, and that, if we're a nonprofit and we can do that, I feel like there's a real opportunity for businesses and real estate developers to consider incorporating solar into their projects. Because if we can find a way to make it work, I feel like others can too. I think, being relatively new, coming into solar with this project, I think we've all learned a lot in terms of how we can best place our stations to maximize the energy that we're getting to power the stations themselves, and to maximize operations throughout the year, whether it's sunny, cloudy, hot or cold. And so we've learned a lot from that. And I just feel like if, we're able to learn from these experiences, that there's a lot of opportunity for others to too. And I would just recommend really thinking about building this into your project, not necessarily as an add-on, but this was just a part of what we did. It wasn't sort of something that it would be nice if we could also do it. It was just built right into the project from the onset. And so I think planning for it that way, and then being able to raise funding for it in that way, really makes a huge difference, because then you just want to be able to launch and get whatever your project is going. And if you don't have the funding for that tends to be something that can just fall to the wayside. So I think that having us, really trying to think about sustainability across multiple realms, right? Not only that we're financially sustainable, but that we're sustainable for our communities, we're sustainable for the environment. And I think that solar certainly plays a big role in that. So we're excited to be, using this type of technology here in Detroit. And again, hopefully others will take, a little bit of inspiration from this, and all the other great work that's happening around in the city. Like I said, we're just one tiny part of that. But think about ways that through your work, you can do work that's more sustainable for individuals and communities, and energy plays a big role in that. So we're glad to be doing our small part.
Okay, as we're running the credits, Kat, do you want to tell people how they can find more of the videos and which other ones you have?
Yeah, for sure. I'll share a link to this particular video, but just so you get an idea, we have a video of Bent Rim Brew House, which is a business on the east side that's built out of a church where there's solar panels. We have EcoWorks. We have Church of the Messiah and their off-grid solar-powered Wi-Fi station. We have the off-grid solar container at D-Town Farm, the rooftop solar at St. Peter's Episcopal, and at Jesu School, which was a youth-led project. We have Ben Dwecky's residential rooftop solar, Gary Wozniak's solar-powered greenhouses, Rising Pheasant Farms solar powered refrigeration system and home on their Homestead farm. And at the moment we have Detroit Farm Insider's old solar installation that she wants to replace, but she's also working on expanding solar on her farm. And we're currently working on tiny homes with Rev Fowler, as well as Oakland Ave, downtown boxing gym, and the last one would be Manistee Community Treehouse. So that would wrap up our video series for this time.
And they're really, truly amazing to see. And as we said, the purpose was that a lot of the solar in Detroit is just missing. We can't see it. And so this is a great way for us to be able to show how many solar users. Father Charles, make you feel proud?
I wanted to say one thing as well. I grew up in Montreal, Canada, so I'm a Montrealer, and it's so great to hear that Montreal has a reach with the cycling community. It was really awesome to learn that. I didn't know that y'all's design came from Montreal, so I was really happy about that.
There we go. Yeah. So there are some questions. Rory, is there anything you want to fill in from the video that maybe pique some extra questions for you? I see one question was, how did you fund? And it looked like there were sponsors.
Yeah, so obviously the purchase of the stations, most of that money came from our Transportation Alternatives grant, as was mentioned in the video. Our ongoing operational costs are they're taken from rider revenue, our title sponsors, which are Henry Ford Health System and HAP. We have station sponsors. We put advertising on our stations. And then obviously, miscellaneous grants that we obviously will apply for, but typically those are programming specific. I think the one thing that I'll just add to that Lisa mentioned in the video is that these solar panel stations, solar powered stations, allow us to be so much more mobile than we could be if we were hardwired into the ground. We've had to move stations a number of times, whether it be our own interest in doing so and sort of trying to maximize ridership or maximize visibility, or one of the cities asking us to move a station out of the way because they have a construction project coming up, or any number of reasons. But we've had to move stations, and with them being not hardwired into the ground, it's pretty easy to just bring a knuckle boom truck over, pick it up, put it on a flatbed, move it, pick it up, and put it back down. So that's definitely a huge plus. That's not necessarily energy related, but it's a resulting factor for sure.
Have you ever with the pandemic, we haven't had conventions, but has there ever been that opportunity where there's a convention? There needs to be 50 bikes in one location instead of scattered around. So maybe that could, in the future, be something too. There's some suggestions about how adding more panels might help beef up the capacity of those batteries in the wintertime. Is this a patented system that you're not allowed to add anything to or to alter that solar system?
We don't have as customers of PBSC, we have the ability to make requests and talk to them about ways in which our system can be improved. We don't have the power to autonomously do it ourselves. But I did notice these two questions in here about increasing the number of panels to increase power output within the station, which seems like a really logical move and potentially, a great way for us to be able to charge e-bikes at a station. I don't know though what the, power demand would be in order for the amount of sunlight needed in order to charge, if we did end up with a station that has 15 or 19 docking points and say every single docking point has an e-bike at or hovering around 10% battery, would it be able to charge every single one? I'm not sure what the what that input to output sort of ratio is and how that would work out, but it seems like a logical concept and something for us to look into for sure, because even that, I'm sure of it, would be less expensive than us purchasing a hardwired station. They are, you know, easily $20,000 to $30,000 more in cost, just the upfront capital cost, and then obviously those ongoing costs of continuing to power stations is just something that we wouldn't be able to sustain.
Yeah, those look like pretty small panels, like maybe 100 to 200 watt on each of the panels. So now, so I'm co-chair of the Detroit Green Task Force Renewable Energy Subcommittee. And so this is what we do with our Green Task Force, is help problem solve and help promote solar. So this is something that maybe we can talk about and help you
Yeah, of course.
the answers that you're looking for as well. Abraham is curious about the current maximum generation capacity of the panel. So that's what we mean. If we knew what the wattage was on those panels, then that's the way that you can calculate out what's going on and how many batteries you have. But it's really encouraging to know that you do max out, clearly in the summertime.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing which is great. So maybe there is something that we're leaving on the table, I guess, like maybe there is some additional capacity that these stations have that we really haven't tapped into.
Yeah.
Particularly in the summer months.
So to what extent can you monitor the stations with bikes remotely? So you must have a program with.
Yeah, we have a pretty extensive management system. It's sort of customer relationship management as well as system management that, allows us to monitor number of bikes at a station, what the battery life of a bike is at a station, what the battery life of the station is, if docking points are functioning properly. It tells us everything that we would need to know in the event that someone on our team would need to, hop in one of the vans and head out to make an adjustment, make it a fix, move a bike around, whatever might be needed for that particular situation.
What's the furthest distance someone has ridden one of the bikes? Do you know?
Oh, we've had a number of people try and, well, I don't know if they necessarily always knew how MoGo works. All trips are supposed to start and end at a station, but a couple times we've, people end up at a ride of about 2 hours, and we give them a call and, make sure they know how the system works, if they need to bring a bike back, and they end up having it at their in their backyard. So that trip went probably a little longer than normal, but maybe not intentionally. So we do have quite a number of people, particularly like our member riders, people who purchase longer term passes, monthly passes, annual passes. They're typically the ones who are using bike share as a way of commuting or sort of as a part of their daily transportation journey, I guess. They might be taking it to lunch. They might be parking somewhere near their office or wherever they're going and then hopping on a bike to finish their trip. They might be using a bike to connect from work to a bus stop. And those people are typically taking pretty short trips, something, I think the average is somewhere around 15 or 16 minutes. And then we have casual riders, people who are using, bike share a little bit more recreationally, trying to go down to the Detroit Riverwalk, the DeQuinder Cut, longer trips, maybe over to Belle Isle and back, where they're just more leisurely, casual strolls, maybe with a few friends or family members. And those trips typically end up being about an hour or longer.
I know in some cities, like in Paris, the first 20 minutes is free. Is that if you're a member, and then you pay after that, or?
Yeah, so ours is structured that for member passes, the first hour is part of your pass. So once you go over that hour, then there's an additional 25 cents a minute cost. And, with member riders, since their average ride time is about 15 or 16 minutes, is usually not a problem there. We have for casual riders, which is basically walk-up users, people who are just spontaneously or maybe, pre-planning to try and use bike share. Kat's video mentioned that we have the pay-as-you-go pass, which is you pay $1 to unlock a bike, and then it's 25 cents a minute. That's typically reserved for people who are just looking, that spontaneous choice to ride a bike, maybe not necessarily going for a super long time, but need that option to get wherever they're trying to go. And then we also have a prepaid pass, which provides 2 hours of riding, and that can be broken up however you like. So you could ride for 15 minutes one day, you could ride for 30 minutes the next day, an hour the next day, and then 15 minutes in 2 weeks. The minutes don't expire until they're all used.
Okay. Are the scooters serious competition with what you're doing?
Hard to say. They're definitely competition. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. They're going after a very similar user who's trying to connect a shorter trip with some sort of option that is not walking, I think. And so, yeah, I think there's definitely a little bit of competition with scooters. They just operate a little bit differently. I think this station-based model that we have just provides a little bit more reliability and knowing that, I'm in this physical location right now, but I know, or I can look on the app to see where stations are, and that station and bikes are going to be there. If you look on an app for a scooter company and see that a scooter might be 3 or 4 blocks away, you could do that walk, but you don't necessarily know that the scooter is going to be there when you get there. And then,
Or that it's charged.
Actually, I don't know. Maybe they do show power supply on scooters in apps. I'm actually not sure that how that works. But in the app that we use, which is called Transit, you can see the number of bikes at a station, where that station is, the number of docking points available in case you're ending a trip. You can see if there's e-bikes there. So yeah, I think that's just another perk of the station-based model, and that it gives you that reliability that I don't know that scooters can provide.
Okay. We have a question from an Oakland County resident, John Freeman, wondering how you decide which cities you'll be expanding to.
Thanks for the question, John. I imagine you're talking about our most recent expansion to Southern Oakland County and Northwest Detroit, and that came about because the city of Ferndale reached out to us and said, "Would you be interested in being the bike share provider in Ferndale?" And we said, that would be very much of interest to us, but we want to make sure that this is, we're a Detroit-based nonprofit, so we wanted to make sure Detroit was part of that. And so we brought to that table that we were going to supply. We wanted to make sure that there were stations and bikes that were going to be going in Northwest Detroit around 6 Mile, Livernois, and sort of that Sherwood Forest, University District, Ella Fitzgerald Park, that kind of area where UD Mercy. We want to make sure that we were touching some of these areas that were, a little bit higher trafficked, but also still in Detroit. And as we sort of got conversations going with Ferndale, and the city of Detroit was involved, then some of these other cities started to join in. And I think, if we can create a little bit more of a network of density, it just helps out making sure that, people have places to go on bike share. I think in hindsight, it really has been fantastic, but having two non-contiguous service areas is definitely tough operationally. We have 2 vans and we are, we're spread thin, not thin, but we're spread out across, 30 some square miles. I'm sure. I'm not exactly sure what the number would be, but it's just tough to manage a system when you have that much more area. Previously, our service area was 10 neighborhoods in Detroit, but with expanding comes new challenges, and I think we're meeting those as they come up. Obviously, last year when we expanded was much different way in which people were using bike share, but as things are starting to change, as the pandemic changes, we're sort of adjusting on the fly.
Kat has a good question that, Kat, do you want to go ahead with yours?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because you guys are expanding and you're placing bike stations in all different kinds of neighborhoods, and we know that Detroit has unstable power grids and that a lot of people also live without the internet, which is a bit of a separate issue, but would you guys see yourselves becoming potentially like small resilience hubs where you tap into that summer potential and you become like small charging stations as well for phones if people lose power and need to make an emergency phone call? That's like a growing conversation in Detroit, is having those little off-grid stations for people, because it's such a big city with so much land and you need a vehicle, and a lot of people unfortunately don't have a vehicle in the city. Just like something that I thought about, knowing that we do have really sunny summers, and you guys do generate more energy than you need probably in the summertime.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I know, in a number of cities around the country and the world, there's a lot of maybe slightly more advanced bus shelters where they have a shelter with a solar panel on top, and there is an maybe some sort of monitor or something playing advertisements, and in a number of those places, there's also an opportunity for riders to charge devices or whatever they have on them. And to your point, yeah, there's no doubt that we could also be allowing users or be charging something else in addition to the station, or maybe charging something else within the station, like an e-bike. And so I definitely think that's possible. I don't know that our equipment provider, no matter how much we would say it, would ever consider offering infrastructure that allowed people to plug into. I could be wrong there. Yeah, I get the sense that that's not a direction that they would go. It has been brought up in a number of conversations that we've had, both with the city of Detroit, more specifically DDOT, PBSC, ourselves. And I don't know what if there would be a major cost difference in our cost to purchase a station, but yeah, it has come up. They don't seem to be super intrigued by the concept, but we've had a few conversations about this, and I imagine that will continue. They continue to sort of do more R&D on their equipment and their infrastructure. So I imagine the more we bring it up, and if we can get other cities to do that as well, it could maybe move the needle a little bit. But yeah, I definitely agree with you that giving people the opportunity to charge personal devices and use some of that power that might be left over to help themselves out makes a whole lot of sense.
This is again this great opportunity, though, Rory, because with our subcommittee at our meeting last week, we started talking about federal funding coming and how are we going to be prepared with the ask. And so this is neighborhood-based resiliency hubs for either farmers markets, or not either, but to include things, even electric vehicle charging. So it could be a great opportunity for us to think about how do we think about this larger infrastructure, and that the e-bikes are part of it. So we're not really asking you guys to put in charging stations for other things, but it's more, how do we make a bigger roof or a bigger tent, and more solar panels for everybody, and then that way you could also have more e-bikes. So I think this is a great opener for us to follow up on.
I was just going to say that as an idea to increase maybe engagement with the designers is maybe like surveying the community if there's capacity to do that eventually, and kind of seeing what the community feels about that, and how useful they think that might be. And then just kind of showing to the designers, like, this is like, we surveyed X amount of people, and this is how many people think this would be really useful. And that might increase their desire to participate in a process like this.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. If we can show power in numbers, I think that helps a lot.
Okay, any more questions about motorized? Have you ever lost a bike, or are they all pretty good at coming back home?
Yeah, they're all pretty good about coming back home. We've had a number of bikes that go missing for fairly long periods of time, and then, most of them end up coming back into the system at some point, or we get some sort of good Samaritan to call us and say, "Hey, we saw your bike here." We've had like a few bikes that go missing for a few months, and then someone, spots a bike that looks like ours but has been completely defaced and painted over, and someone's customized it to make it their own. But yeah, they typically end up coming back. I'd say,
Flames on the side.
yeah. I would say the worst thing that happened to us when it comes to missing bikes or bikes that go off the grid, for a period of time, has been the advent of scooters in Detroit. And I don't say that because they're a competitor or anything. It's just because the way that they operate, in that you can kickstand them literally anywhere.
Yeah.
That it's hard for people to differentiate between bike share and scooter share. So they just assume that you can kickstand it wherever. So we might call someone. Typically we give people a call after an hour, maybe 2 hours, depending on the pass type and what their ride time allotment is. But we'll give people a call and say, hey, bikes are supposed to be returned to the station. It's been X amount of time since you checked your bike out. And they'll say, oh yeah, no, I kickstanded at the corner about an hour and a half ago. I'm like, which corner?
That
So,
corner.
yeah. So that's been a tough thing for us. When I talk about some operational, hurdles that we have to get over. Obviously, when we expand, we're expanding to a completely new area, entirely new rider. Well, not entirely all the time, but a lot of new riders, people who are learning the system for the first time. And then this is post advent of scooters. So people just assume I can kickstand it anywhere. And then it just adds a little bit more stress to our operation. But yeah, I mean, I saw another question in here about vandalism of stations. Definitely not a problem, and that is not necessarily the norm. There is a number of bike share systems around the country and the world that have had, people slashing every single tire of every single bike at every single station in the city. They've had, people taking down solar panels, spray painting stations. We have really, knock on wood here, we have not had any of that. So really happy about that. And hopefully that continues.
Yeah, I sometimes see scooters in the most bizarre places.
Oh yeah.
And you think, what, you just, did it run out of gas or, power? It's just left, all over. And yeah, you don't want that. So
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of those library books that I had to take back after a few years when I realized that it was still on the shelf there. You can't quite do that with a bike though, right?
Yeah, no, preferably not.
Yeah, that's much bigger than the library book. Anybody else have questions or thoughts? I think it's a great way for us to think about mobility in Detroit, but also the idea of agility, because the solar panels allow us to move things in different locations and not be tied to the grid. And so I think it is a great example for us to really look at the idea of resiliency. And that's that next step that we're referring to with these shelters, or ways to think of recreation centers and different things that offer resiliency hubs. And I know the city is looking at that with the sustainability office. So we'll definitely be working more with you. And I really appreciate that Kat reached out and made this first connection for us, and that we've been able to feature you with our Michigan Solar Stories and our Detroit Solar Stories as well. John Freeman, President of Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association. Anything you want to share at the closing here? Or Father Charles, did you have something here?
I just have one question, because in the chat, but get picked up. Because this model, I mean, in terms of how many stations would you in your population density in terms of applying to other parts of the state of Michigan? Could it be, we apply like a smaller market like Kalamazoo or Grand Rapids or, even Marquette? I don't know how, what's the, talk about resiliency, what's the carrying capacity potential for this, in terms of smaller market?
So bike share systems are typically managed locally. So like MoGo is not in other cities. That city entity would typically formulate their own bike share system. Of course, like we could, I know there's a number of organizations that we work sort of in tandem with on other projects have been interested in bringing MoGo to Ann Arbor, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for us because we're trying to make sure we focus on Detroit first. But yeah, there is a number of opportunities to expand bike share in cities, big or small. There are cities all over the country that have significantly smaller population density than Detroit that have very successful bike share systems.
Does that include solar?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so actually this is one thing I did want to mention. There are a number of systems that have, excuse the expression, but there are some systems that have dumb stations and smart bikes, and we are technically considered, dumb bike smart stations, in that the station, really harnesses all of the energy, and it has all of the guts in it to be able to understand, how many bikes are there, what's the power of the station, what's the power of the bike, and supplies all the data back to our CRM. But there are a number of cities that have, solar panels and, credit card readers and buttons to unlock bikes that is directly on the bike. And then the station itself is more of a glorified bike rack, as opposed to a station that has any kind of solar mast on it, or any sort of docking point that the user would really interact with. And actually, that was what was on the system. There was a system called Zagster that was in Detroit that was launched in 2013, but it was a private system that was funded by a number of companies in downtown Detroit, including Quicken Loans, DTE, a few others. And that was a system that they sort of had. It was sort of that,
and it was exclusive to their employees.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, and it was sort of that smart bike dumb station type of thing. Yeah, sorry for the expression.
Not very equitable. Yeah, I saw those way back when. It was like, wait, so I can't ride one of those bikes because of Quicken Loans.
So yeah, we wanted to make sure that this was something that everybody could get.
Thank you. Okay, really good point. And I like that we have smart stations, even if our bikes are not so smart. Jen, do you want to wrap it up for us? And
sure, Diane. I just want to thank Rory for coming on and for Catherine for showing the video. It was excellent. And I want to thank all the participants for coming on. This is being recorded, as you all know. We're putting it on the GLREA YouTube page. And then starting probably next week, I'm going to be including a link of this video to a updated email that goes out to the entire GLREA membership. I also want to remind everybody on here that GLREA is having a mid-year strategy event on June 26th. It's a Saturday from 6 to 7:30. It's essentially a fundraiser helping to celebrate the 30th anniversary of GLREA. I would encourage all of you to join us. Tickets are $50, but they're tax deductible, and Douglas Jester will be our guest, and he's with 5 Lakes Energy, a really sharp individual that can really talk about what we've gone through so far in terms of the renewable energy transition and what we need to do in the future to complete our mission. So everyone's welcome on June 26th. And finally, I just want to thank Diane for doing an excellent job of moderating it. And so thank you all and have a great evening.
okay, thank you, everybody. Next month, we're featuring a Detroit urban farm. So see you the third Thursday of July. Bye now.